Are you thinking of hiring a cat sitter and want to be certain you get a great one? Well, in this video, I'm going to share all the secrets that you definitely need to know. We're going to go over how to find an amazing sitter, what you can realistically expect to pay that person, if tipping is required, some stuff you absolutely must do before leaving town, and at the end, some important bonus tips. My name is Shannon, and I've been cat sitting for the past 10 years, 3 of which have been on Meowtel, the cat sitting app, where I have a 5-star rating and many happy repeat clients. I am also the Meow Me to the beautiful Miss Katniss Siamese, that's her Instagram handle. Admittedly, guys, I am an extremely overprotective cat mom, and leaving town low-key gives me anxiety. So I'm making this video partially to talk to the equivalent version of myself and let you know some stuff that I really wish I had known would have made me feel so much better. Okay, first off, where to find one? So essentially you have 3 choices. You can go through an app or site like Meowtel or Rover. You can ask for referrals through family and friends. Or, and this is increasingly popular anymore, you can post on a neighborhood site like Nextdoor or maybe like a Facebook specific neighborhood group and ask if people around your area have a cat sitter referral for you. So hiring from a site like Rover or Meowtel comes with slightly higher costs and some protection, so it's like good and bad. First of all, important to state that Meowtel is cat specific. Rover, I think a lot of people get the impression it's dogs only. You can actually find and be a cat sitter on Rover. Maybe it's less common, but it is possible. Generally speaking, when you hire a sitter through an app, you're going to expect to pay a little bit more. So one of the reasons for this, probably the biggest reason, is the apps are taking a significant percentage of that sitter's pay as kind of a fee for being on the app. On Meowtel, when a sitter starts out with a new client, Meowtel takes 30%. Now that is not insignificant. As such, generally what you see is sitters pricing their services slightly higher than maybe you could get by going through a neighborhood referral. The apps also typically have holiday surcharges, so if you are booking a sitter during a federal holiday and or the days immediately before or after it, typically there's a surcharge added to the cost of the service. It can be as high as 30%. There's also specific rules about payments and cancellations. So I believe booking a sitter through an app, they require you to kind of front the money so it's sitting in an account ready to pay the sitter after the job. And cancellation, at least with Meowtel's policy, my understanding is if you cancel 48 hours or more in advance, you get a full refund. If it's in the 24 to 48 hour window, you get a 50% refund. And if you cancel 24 hours or less before the job is scheduled to start, you do not get a refund. Reason for that is just simply the sitter has blocked off the time. They have likely, possibly turned down other work for you, so it's just a way to be fair to them. Side note, a sitter does have the power to override that should they so choose, so I would always recommend if an emergency comes up, it does not hurt to communicate the situation. So while the apps are typically higher priced, they also come with some protections which are valuable. Many offer insurance, so that is both for your protection and the sitter's protection in case like illness or damage of property or something goes missing. Important side note on that insurance, at least through Meowtel, it can be completely void for the entire job if the job does not follow Meowtel's terms and conditions. One of those things that I've seen commonly is pet owners inviting other people into their house for the duration of that job. For example, you have a pet sitter coming over throughout the week, but you also have a cleaning service coming in and doing their thing. That actually voids Meowtel's entire insurance policy because one other person has been in that house during the job. So just be aware of that. Another protection is the apps do some screening for you. I mean, pretty much anybody on an app has been pre-screened to some degree. I cannot speak for every app. I can tell you that on Meowtel that process is no joke. It involves way more than just a background and check. It involves interviews, it involves reference checks, it involves like a test that you have to take, it involves a pre-screening call, it involves a probationary period. So in so much as they possibly can, they are ensuring that quality people are on the site. And another feature that is great protection is they have a hotline. So if an emergency comes up last minute, and this is on your end or the sitter's end, there is a staff ready to help. So one example might be if you're, and I hate to even say this because I would hope this doesn't happen, your sitter doesn't show up, you call that Meowtel hotline, they can likely get another sitter out to your house. There are also some guarantees going through an app. So for example, the app guarantees the duration of a visit. It also guarantees things like the sitter will send photos or video clips of the visit and a little summary. These are requirements. I guess it's true that there's always the possibility somebody may not adhere to that, but if they don't, I mean, you report them to the app and there's actually consequences for it, so those type of people don't tend to stick around. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit more set in stone and that has a little bit of like stuff backing it, the apps are a good option. That is not to say, however, that private is a bad way to go, asking for referrals. I actually found Katniss's first cat sitter this way. I put an ad, I just wrote like I'm seeking a cat sitter on a neighborhood group, and I got lots and lots of referrals. And my tip to you, if you do this, try not to go with somebody who's just mentioned once, but look for commonalities, like the same name coming up from 3 or 4 different families. Because literally, like, anybody can go write their friend's name as a referral, and that doesn't mean a ton. But when you see that the same person has worked for 3 or 4 different homes and everybody is happy, that should give you a layer of comfort. Also worth noting that just because you go through referrals, that doesn't mean the person couldn't be insured or have like a small business that's formally set up. In fact, some of them do, but it's just a lot more of a wild card. Okay, second thing, what is a fair price to pay? So unfortunately, this is extremely difficult to answer with one figure because it does vary depending on the type of job and, very importantly, your location, meaning city or area that you're in. So by type of job, I mean duration. Like, are you asking somebody to come for 20 minutes a day or 60 minutes a day? Or do you want them to be there twice a day? Do you want them to spend the night at your house? So rates for all these things clearly would vary. Also, some areas, higher cost of living areas, prices are going to be higher, obviously. I am in Colorado. Especially lately, guys, Colorado's cost of living is insane. I honestly would venture to guess it ranks right up there with like New York and California. So that really is my tip, is use your app to search your local area and see what sitters are charging. So Meowtel makes it very easy. You can go search for a cat sitter. You can type in your zip code and it will pull up all the sitters that service that area and it will tell you what their rates start at. And if you look for Colorado, my area code, or zip code, excuse me, you will see that the rates, generally speaking, range from about $25 to a high of $33. And this is for the simplest type of job, which is a 20-minute visit. And again, revisiting what I said earlier, Meowtel is taking a decent cut of that, so your sitter is probably taking home somewhere about between $20, $25 maybe for that job. My personal rate is set at $30 for a 20-minute visit, which Meowtel is really kind of handy for sitters because it will actually tell you, you can set your own rates and then it will tell you where that rate falls in line with what others are charging. So it does a little bit of market research for you. You can also search the exact same way on the neighborhood sites. So you can ask you can literally post a question like, what's the going rate, and see what people say and kind of get a feel for it that way. You're likely going to see those slightly cheaper. Again, there are reasons for it. But my advice, generally speaking, is when you're looking what should you pay, what's a fair price, get a good sense for your area, and then think about somewhere like mid to like higher mid-range for what would be fair. I think that implies a certain quality, but still falls within a range of reasonable. This is just my opinion, but I am a believer to a certain extent that you get what you pay for, and at least when it comes to my fur baby, that is just not an area where I care to cut corners. You know, there's no guarantee that because you're paying more, it's going to be amazing. But I do think that if somebody is got a slightly higher rate, that definitely implies that they're going to provide top tier service. Okay, next question, should you tip? Okay, so like those who know me personally know that my feelings about tipping are pretty strong, which just generally speaking is that I think tipping culture has gotten insanity squared. Like, it's ridiculous that when I walk into a cookie store and all I'm really doing is buying a cookie and they're putting it in a bag and taking my money, the little screen pops up and it's like, do you want to leave a tip? And it starts at like 25%, and it's like, eh. And I think, unfortunately, one of the downsides to seeing this pretty much everywhere I go is it makes me honestly kind of like resentful and like less likely to want to do it anywhere. Although that's just an emotional reaction. The reality is, I believe when you find a service that is well provided and you want to hang on to it, I absolutely believe in tipping. And so, all this to say, slight rant, but all this to say that if you find a pet sitter, and this is if, like the if is big here because this is not guaranteed. If you find a pet sitter who you're comfortable with and who does amazing work for you, I would suggest tipping because it is a nice gesture and you want to hang on to that person. On the flip side, if it's just, anybody could have filled that role, they were adequate, but I don't really care much. Honestly, I'm a believer in a tip means above and beyond, so I probably wouldn't do it in that case. So, in other words, it's okay to have a high standard. It's okay to think that a tip needs to be earned and not just assumed. In fact, I would recommend that being your approach. Find someone amazing, do it. Also, please keep in mind that a tip does not necessarily have to be like a grand, huge gesture to be meaningful. I've had clients, and side note, honestly, I'm at the point where about 80 to 90% of my clients are tipping me, but a caveat to that is they're also repeat clients. So it's very common, but it really varies as to what they do. I have had some like tips that were so high where it was like, wow, like that kind of blew me away, like several $100s. And then I have had people leave me small gift cards for like Starbucks with a thank you note, or they leave me like treats, like homemade cookies that they made or something with a thank you note. And I have to tell you, that is just as meaningful. Because a huge part of a tip is just an expression of gratitude, letting them know that you recognize that they're going above and beyond and it is appreciated. And so I would say don't feel like there's a huge pressure to make it big and grandiose, and that even a little something is so much better than not. And that's, again, if you care about keeping this person around. Some advice to sitters is set your tip at a rate that you're happy with and that you don't need a tip on top of to be satisfied. I think that's really important. Like, you value your work at the quality that would make you feel like it's worth it. If you get a tip, it's above and beyond because you went above and beyond. Like, that's the caveat to you too. Like, you should never think a client should give you a tip just for existing. I'm really, really opposed to that. But if you've gone above and beyond, that tip should reflect that. That's what it's meant for. So you have to go into a job with a rate that, like, even if I don't get an extra anything over this, I'm happy because it was worth my time. Okay, next point. Things you must do before leaving town. There are 6 of them, super important. Guys, number 1, I could stress this in all capital letters, underlined like 5 times and highlighted. Do a meet and greet beforehand. Oh my God. I cannot tell you how many times I've encountered a client who is perfectly comfortable with the idea of just sending me a message through an app, telling me they want to hire me, and saying something like, let me just text you the code, I'm leaving on this date, or the key will be under the mat. And it's like, no. So a meet and greet is where you, the sitter, go over to the client's house before the job begins to meet them face to face, meet the animals, see the layout of the house, see where everything is kept, go over what is expected of you. And it is so important not only for the comfort of you, the sitter, but also the person hiring you, the client. And it is just, I personally will not take jobs if the client won't do a meet and greet with me. And it is just every bit as much for their protection as mine. There's a lot of liability involved in me going into somebody else's home. I definitely don't want the first time I arrive there to be on my own, where I'm having to search out everything myself and guess what may be so clear to them may not be to me, or if there's any little weird nuances or quirks about the cat, about the house, just about the layout, I need to know ahead of time. So as a sitter, I would highly recommend having a standard where a meet and greet is required. As an owner, please understand that 1, it's for your benefit, but also 2, like, if a sitter's willing to come in without that, I'd be honestly a little bit leery of that also. Second thing that's essential that you do, and this is kind of done for you on the apps when you book a job, but especially if you're going through a private, define the duration and times of the visits. Don't assume that it's clear. Even if you say something like, I want you to come in the morning, morning could mean very different things to different people. So you could say morning and you could be thinking 6 to 7 a.m. because that's when I typically get up and that's when my cat is used to eating. And you could say morning to somebody else who hears it and think, well, I don't roll out of bed till 9, so I'll be over there by 10. So define just very clearly what time of day, and specific is good, although, generally speaking, some flexibility is appreciated. So morning, sometime between 6 and 8 a.m. would be ideal. Also, duration of visit, I would like you to be there at least 30 minutes. I think there's a lot more room for like private sitters to kind of skirt that, so it's really helpful to spell up front what you're looking for. While your sitter's there for the meet and greet, you're going to give them a key or share the code to your garage, however they're going to enter the house. Test it. Like literally, you may think that you're giving them the right one, but it's just an extra layer of protection. So if they actually don't have the right key, or for whatever reason the code isn't working, they know it before you actually leave town. Provide vet info and instructions, so at least let your sitter know where that information will be and under what circumstances you would want them to go to the vet, and should they contact, I mean, honestly, they should contact you before doing that, but you need to make it really clear to them what you'd expect. So I've had clients tell me, my cat is insured, anything medically necessary you have authorization to do. I've had clients tell me, if you think the vet is necessary, text my private cell phone number before going anywhere. I've had clients tell me, here's where the vet information is. You start with a phone call to them and let them make the call. But these things just need to be clearly defined, so again, assumptions are not being made. Next important thing is plan for a backup. And this is basically in case of emergency, whether that be like really, really horrible weather or something awful happening and the sitter just can't get there, like medical emergency or whatever. Is there a backup plan? So a backup plan could be a neighbor who knows you're going out of town and could pop by, worst case. A backup plan could be as simple as leaving a lockbox with an extra key hidden and not telling anybody, so if you do have to have somebody else come over, they'll have a way to get in. Leaving extra food out for the cats. Slight tip, as a sitter who's seen a lot, I will just tell you, doors can get shut accidentally and cats can get locked in or out of places, so if there is a door that could possibly get shut, I'd block it with like a door block so it can't, and I'd also put extra food and water in any room that they could possibly get trapped in. Finally, last thing you need to do beforehand is write out everything you and that sitter discuss during the meet and greet. I know it seems super obvious when you're going through it, but they are also human. What seems obvious on the spot can be easily forgotten when there's a ton of jobs being juggled, and it's just an extra form of protection, reassurance. Okay guys, final section, some miscellaneous stuff that you need to know. This is so important. The first thing is there are some legit reasons why a sitter might turn you down, and there's really two big ones that I see commonly. One would be because of outdoor pets. So especially with cats, if you have cats that are used to being indoor-outdoor or outdoor, there are some sitters, myself included, and frankly, honestly, anybody on the Meowtel app is coached this way. Their insurance doesn't cover outdoor situations. A lot of them will not take outdoor jobs for that reason. And the reason is it's not a judgment on the cat's lifestyle. It is literally that you are opening yourself up to the possibility of so many more bad things happening while that cat is in the sitter's care. And it's not just the liability, but it's like the emotional liability. Like that would be on my conscience, and I couldn't live with that. So it's totally fine to have an indoor-outdoor cat, but when you are having a sitter in your house for that duration, either plan on that just being a strictly indoor situation or understand that a sitter may say no for that reason. So the second most common reason I see sitters turning down work is because it's like an every other day situation. So the owner does not want the sitter there every day, but rather every other day. And I will say this isn't my philosophy. I do take jobs where it's every other day, but I do understand that the reason people turn them down is, again, there's just a longer duration of the cat being alone, a greater possibility that if something happens, there could be a bad outcome because there's no one there to check on it. And therefore, there's just people that don't want to deal with that because it would be on their conscience. A suggestion would be to cat parents, if you don't necessarily want to pay for a ton, but you also want some extra protection, maybe consider, I think a better approach might be alternating. So for example, if you have a 3-day span, 20-minute visit, 45-minute visit, 20-minute visit. So one day have a slightly longer and then shorters. This third one is really important, and I think this is something I found myself communicating to a lot of people that I pet sit for, is that pet behavior can change in an owner's absence and in an unpredictable ways. So I hear a lot of oh, my cat would never do that, or my cat is always this way. But when their people leave and they're alone and a strange person is coming into the house, even if it's somebody they've seen before, they can act unpredictably. And therefore you just kind of have to remember this. And so I'd be extra cautious about stuff like if they might chew on a cord, maybe unplug them. I would not leave windows open where there's a screen. I've had owners say I've never seen my cat try to scratch the screen or do anything. I mean, if you're not there for a week and they're lonely and you just don't know, so why even have that risk on the table? So just err on the side of caution, understand behavior can change, and you don't ever think it will happen until it does, so just do everything you can to ensure it's the safest possible environment. Next thing to know, super important, write a review for your sitter. After the job is over, let people know how it went, because this helps other pet owners make educated decisions. It helps your sitter know what they're doing right or wrong or what needs to be improved, and it can help their business. If they're doing a great job, it is a reward. The flip side of this is if you are or dissatisfied with anybody's work, let the apps know. That's another benefit to the apps. They care. You make a complaint, they take it seriously. I know as a Meowtel sitter, your profile can be deactivated if a complaint escalates to them and they rule in the customer's favor. So don't hesitate to share feedback. It is so important for everybody involved. Okay guys, I've saved the last because it's not least and because it's really meaningful to me actually, and I'm speaking from the heart here. As I told you at the beginning, I am an anxious cat mom. I hate leaving Katniss alone. I do have a great sitter. I've had good experiences with her. And even so, literally the anxiety will start a week or two before I'm scheduled to leave, and it's uncomfortable anxiety. And maybe in another video I'll share kind of a backstory as to what started that. It's kind of a longer story, but anyway, the message is that most pets are fine in your absence, and I think it is largely a human fear about leaving them. And this is something that has become super, super clear to me the more I pet sit. It sucks to leave them, you miss them so much, but I am going into a lot of houses. I am seeing a lot of cats of all different personalities, and while they're not all the same in terms of some are more social, some are more prone to hide, all of that, generally speaking, they're in their environment and they miss you, yes, but they are okay. And I really hope that sharing this provides comfort. I see it day in and day out, day in and day out. And it has been so helpful to my anxious little mind to be like, I largely think this is in my head. And so like recently I was weighing like I want to leave town, I want to go visit family. There's a part of me that like wants to bring Katniss with me. Now I know she gets really scared in new environments, and that frankly the idea of a road trip and being in a hotel or wherever for a week is probably horrifying to her and would be much more about my comfort and selfishness. When I force myself to remember what I see when I pet sit, I realize that leaving her home with quality, competent sitter, absolutely the best move for her. That's the selfless move. And so just know that. I mean, really, I think that's my message, is know that your pets are going to be okay. There are amazing people out there wanting to care for them and provide that amazing love and just companionship while you're away. And it is so cool when you find one of these people. Like, hang on to them, definitely. I say that as a cat mom speaking to you, and also as a cat sitter, I just say I love doing it. Like, it just brings me great joy to be able to provide that comfort to people, and just lots of kitty companions. Like, I have lots of kitty friends that I've made. Love it, love it, love it. Coolest job in the world. If you want to hear about some of my other cat sitting adventures, I do have some other videos you can check out. But in the meantime, thank you for hanging out with me on this one, and I will see you in the next video.